Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. My name is Brad Badgley. I'm the Director of Housing Advocacy for the CDP, the Community Development Partnership. And we'll have some folks introduce themselves and we'll go through a brief presentation here in a moment. But before we do that, I just want to set some ground rules. Just make sure everybody knows to keep themselves muted. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions. We just have a brief sort of mini presentation, and then the rest of the time will be for Q&A. In terms of answering questions, when we get to that portion, please make sure to use the question feature, the raise hand feature on your Zoom, and we will make sure to get your questions. We'll get through all of them. And we just ask that you hold your questions, like I said, to the end of the presentation. And yeah, this is going to be recorded, as you all see, and we'll make sure to post this. And so if you didn't catch anything, we'll have this recorded. But yeah, otherwise we can go ahead and get started.
Are you ready?
Yep, go ahead, Elaine.
All right. Well, thank you, Brad, and good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining this conversation about this critically important project for our community. I'm Elaine McElroy, Chair of the Wellfleet Housing Authority, a member of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust, and I also served as Chair of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force. And after over 18 years of volunteering in the area of affordable housing in Wellfleet, I can't emphasize enough how much this project is needed to sustain and support our town and our region, providing housing that is attainable to our essential and town workers, our educators, the people who staff the businesses that we need and that we enjoy, folks who shellfish, those who provide healthcare, elder care, child care, and more. We are losing these people at an alarming rate due to the lack of decent year-round housing that they can afford. So it is very exciting to be at this point and see 95 Lawrence Road moving forward to provide this housing under the highly experienced, capable, creative, and thoughtful leadership of our developers, Preservation of Affordable Housing, known affectionately as POA, and the Community Development Partnership. So tonight is an opportunity to learn more, but more importantly, it's a chance for you to join the conversation, ask your questions, and share any comments you might have. Your participation tonight and as we go through this process will really help inform the project as it moves ahead. So I think we should dive in, and I'm going to turn things over to Jay Coburn, the CEO of the Community Development Partnership.
Elaine, thanks so much for welcoming us, and especially thank you for your incredible leadership over several decades in Wellfleet of helping to steer our community to address the affordable housing challenges that are more now acute than ever. I'm, as Elaine said, the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Development Partnership, and I'm pleased to welcome Julie Kramer from Preservation of Affordable Housing and Gail Sullivan from Studio G Architects, who are our partners in this proposal to build 46 units of affordable housing in the town of Wellfleet. Many of you are aware of the housing crisis that is confronting the Outer and Lower Cape, as well as many of the steps this Community Development Partnership has taken to build the capacity of the 8 towns we serve to support the creation of more housing. We've had the pleasure of working closely with the town of Wellfleet, which made the decision several years ago to designate the parcel of land at 95 Lawrence Road, right across the street from the Wellfleet Elementary School, to affordable housing. And over a 2-year community engagement and planning process, the town put together a request for proposals. The POA Studio G CDP proposal was chosen out of 3 developers who responded to this request for proposals. We are currently in the 40B zoning permitting process. Where after several hearings this summer, the Zoning Board of Appeals will consider a comprehensive permit. So these hearings are going to provide an opportunity for residents to participate and have input into this process, allowing our team to make changes to our proposal and ensuring it best meets the needs of the abutters and the surrounding communities. So I'm pleased to kick off our presentation tonight, which is going to last about 20 or 25 minutes, after which we're going to open it up for questions and comments. So our team has crafted a bold proposal to build high quality, affordable housing for a range of incomes and household sizes, to develop an environmentally sustainable property, nearly net zero in energy consumption, and to create a community with a resilient and elegant design that draws on local building traditions. So this new neighborhood is a once in a generation opportunity to build a considerable number of affordable homes in Wellfleet. We're proposing a community that provides for a diverse range of Wellfleet residents, from seniors and families living on very modest incomes to working families and empty nesters struggling to downsize into local and affordable housing. It will also feature a mix of unit sizes and a range of affordability and a building design that will attract financial partners because it can be delivered on budget and will remain financially healthy over the long term. And our project will be built to the highest level of environmental sustainability, healthy, all electric, energy efficient homes. And we preserve the existing landscape while minimizing the environmental impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods. So since our inception in 1992, the Community Development Partnership has been active in Wellfleet, providing affordable housing and nurturing small businesses. We have a deep understanding of the town through our work making loans to shellfishing and other businesses, providing housing rehabilitation services for low-income Wellfleet residents, and housing 12 families at our affordable housing development at Fred Bell Way. Our partners at a Preservation for Affordable Housing have been developing best-in-class affordable housing for 2 decades. They have extensive experience building and managing communities in the Lower Cape. The CDP POA Studio G partnership combines our strengths, the sophisticated development capability of POA with the local, deeply informed expertise of the CDP. And we believe that our team is uniquely well-suited to collaborate with the town of Wellfleet and deliver the project that is best for Wellfleet's year-round residents. So over the next 20 minutes, my colleagues are going to discuss the experience and capacity of our team to get this project built, the details on the affordability of the proposed units, the financial feasibility of the project, and our green design for the site, the buildings and infrastructure, and our commitment to environmental sustainability. I'd like to turn this over to my colleague, Julie Kramer from POA, who's going to talk about the team's experience and capacity. Julie?
Thank you, Jay. And good evening, everyone. As Jay mentioned, I'm Julie Kramer. I work for Preservation of Affordable Housing, or POA, as we're known. For those of you not familiar with POA, we're a nonprofit developer, owner, and manager of affordable housing with headquarters in Boston. POA's work on the Cape really began in 2006, and we now own and manage 670 apartment homes on Cape Cod, with an additional 30 currently under construction and hopefully to be completed at the end of the summer. And those are located in Brewster. Our development work on Cape Cod and our commitment to the folks who live here is unwavering. Over the past decade, we have secured over $57 million in low-income housing tax credits, over $16.5 million in state and local affordable housing resources to build and preserve affordable housing on Cape Cod. I've had the great fortune of working as a development project manager on all of POA's Cape Cod properties. And as a result, I know more than I ever thought I would about septic systems and wastewater treatment plants. Thank you. POA and CDP respect the need for a proper wastewater solution and recognize that it is a critical part to any housing, but especially to affordable housing on Cape Cod. POA has designed and built 2 wastewater treatment plants, one in Brewster at King's Landing, and one highly sophisticated zero net nitrogen one at Canal Bluffs in Bourne. The balance of our other properties on Cape Cod that are not on town sewer are IA systems, innovative alternative septic systems. They are aimed at reducing the nitrogen loading. One of them is at Melpit Farm in Dennis. That's a pretty special project in itself. It is the first near net zero multifamily housing to be built on Cape Cod. Our experience with permitting multifamily housing through the 40B comprehensive permit process is extensive. 2 of our existing Cape Cod properties were permitted through 40B. We secured a 3rd one in March for Mashpee, and most recently we secured another one in Bourne. CDP is our local partner for this project, and they'll ensure that our development work once again meets the needs of the community. As our development partner, CDP will lead the permitting work, and they will help to coordinate the lottery and lease-up process with our property manager, POA Communities. The POA and CDP team has the experience, capacity, and commitment to successfully and sustainably bring critically needed year-round housing to the town of Wellfleet. The next slide, we hope, will speak to our affordability goals and our financial feasibility. As Jay mentioned, this is a rare opportunity to build housing on the Lower Cape. Because of this, we wanted to use this opportunity to provide housing to a broad range of residents. We have proposed a range of affordability that we believe is consistent with the town's needs and the criteria that was included in the RFP. And the range of households will be 30 to 100% AMI, thus addressing a range of needs from lower wage households working in seasonal service and retail jobs to middle income households in construction, office administration, and some of the town employees, such as teachers, police officers, and firefighters. I think the next slide will speak more specifically to the ranges. We have 8 units that will be reserved for households with very modest incomes. So those are the ones in the 30 to 50% AMI range. These folks are working minimum wage jobs or living on Social Security. 27 of the units will be restricted to households earning up to 60% AMI. Those are individuals and families earning between $40,000 and $60,000 a year. Seasonal service jobs, individuals, some single earner households, and retirees living on savings. Finally, we have proposed 11 units that currently are proposed to not be income restricted under a state or federal program. These will be affordable to households and seniors that may not qualify under the low-income housing tax credit program, but wish to remain in Wellfleet. Our intention with these unrestricted units is to have some flexibility to meet local middle income market. This market is likely in the range of 70 to 80%, but under no circumstances would these be rented for at rents over 120% AMI. I'd like to point out that Wellfleet has recently submitted a really strong application for MassWorks infrastructure grant, which will be critical to bringing wastewater treatment plant that will serve the town and our property. Finally, we believe we have a realistic long-term operating budget that will provide for sustainable, resident-focused on-site management that is just as important as having a realistic initial development budget. This will allow us to operate a property that residents will love and the town will be proud of. I'd like to turn it over to our amazing architect next, Gail Sullivan, who's going to walk us through the design and approach to this important project.
Thanks, Julie. I'm Gail Sullivan, Managing Principal at Studio G Architects, and I'm also a part-time Wellfleet resident. I'm here in the drizzly Wellfleet right now. So I'd like to start with 3 design principles that have truly shaped the project. Affordable homes for year-round residents, as Julie was talking about, in a livable community. I'll talk more about that. With deep environmental sustainability. And this starts with site design. So we focused the plan on the already disturbed land. The housing, as you can see here from this aerial, it wraps around the ball field with a buffer zone of trees around the ball field to separate the 2 uses. And it stays away from both the hill that slopes down to Old Long Pond Road and also stays away from the other side of the water tower. And we thought this was very important. It leaves more than half of the site as untouched woodland, and that was a principle for us. And if we can go to the next. Oh, yeah, no, actually, yeah, that's perfect. So the thing I wanted to show is we're concerned about traffic to and from the school potentially conflicting with the housing. And so one of the things we've done is shown a road. Can you see my cursor? Can somebody tell me? I don't know if you can see mine. You might only be able to see Mallory's. Anyway, we have a road that goes from Long Pond Road all the way up to the far side. Thanks, Mallory. To the far side of Lawrence Road. That's one connection. The other is the lower portion connecting a 3-story building that has an elevator to Lawrence Road. By doing that, we have exits, entrances on either side of the elementary school, which we think will reduce conflict and traffic. So this is the site organization map, and it tells you similar to what the aerial just did, but I'm going to make a couple of other notes here as we look at it. First of all, we have an upper village, and that's clusters of townhouses. So 3 and 4 units of townhouses clustered together because this makes it more efficient. We'd use up less of the site. And interspersed with them are parking spaces between the clusters so that we don't have any big parking lot, which we thought would really be a negative environmentally. And then this bright, showing here as a yellow, it's meant to be green. This bright yellow box here, kind of in the middle of the turn, is a community building that will have mailboxes, meeting space, laundry, etc., with community spaces outdoors. And I'll talk about that a little more later. There's a maintenance building on site close to the water tower. And then we have what we're calling the lower village. So if the upper village is 2 and 3 bedroom units, the lower village is 1 and 2 bedroom. And part of what we're talking about besides income, as both Julie and Jay addressed, is we're really trying to make sure that we're meeting a wide range of needs of year-round Wellfleet residents. We know some of them are likely to be older people who might be looking to get out of a larger house, And so 1 and 2 bedroom units in a building that's 100% accessible with an elevator and provides for a lot of their needs in the building would be really helpful. So we're really providing a wide range from 1 bedroom units to 3 bedroom units. Let's go to the next. And this shows an example of the vegetation that exists there. And I know that people in Wellfleet care a lot about the quality of our environment. The point of this is to say that we care a lot about it as well. We will remove trees to do this. We will remove as few trees as possible. We are very conscious about that. We're already doing some shifts in the site plan just to make sure of that. And when we replace, we'll replace with native species. So let's go ahead to the next. And this gives you an idea of that. It's a very conceptual site plan that's showing the vegetation. The dark green indicates the woodland. And I think this is probably the best way to understand what I'm talking about the untouched land. Up to the, on the screen, top right side, as well as what we'll do to infill buffering, landscape buffering between this housing and other uses. For instance, on Long Pond Road, where there's some lovely rhododendrons and some tall trees, we've set the building behind that, where the current or the former COA building was. And we will repair and fill in the buffer there. The same along Lawrence Road, so that it both shelters the community of affordable housing, but it also separates it a bit from other uses nearby. I'm not going to get into, there's a lot of details on this plan. You can see a lot of notes. I'm not going to get into those details. If you have questions, we'll come back to them. Let's go to the next, Mallory. Thanks. So this shows from early, kind of the connection at the upper part of Lawrence Road, the townhouse clusters that I was talking about. And one of the things that was important to us here is to break the scale of these buildings and to provide variety so that it looks like a neighborhood. Also important is to make sure that neighbors face each other. We really want to create a community within this. So you can see doors are facing each other. Everybody has a front yard. The front yards, every unit has a front yard area, an entry porch, small entry porch, and by the buildings moving back and forth, as you see here on the left-hand side, right? One unit is set back, the next unit comes forward. It creates some additional privacy for each of the households that's living there. There will be a sidewalk. This is something that was raised early in a discussion. There'll be a sidewalk that will connect the whole development. So the little kid that you see here on her bicycle in the road should actually be on a sidewalk. So we want to make sure that it's safe for the residents and safe for anybody who's driving through. And let's go on to the next. And I wanted, before I show the 3-story building, I wanted to mention that in fact, there's a precedent in Wellfleet for 3-story and 4-story buildings. Some of these are actually on Old Long Pond Road. So I went around and took a lot of pictures of existing buildings just to look at the typologies, to look at the way people deal with roof lines, windows, porches, so that we were making sure that we were designing very mindful of Cape Cod vernacular, as well as of the mid-century modern houses that many of us think are really quite beautiful around Wellfleet. Go to the next. So here you see a bit of an updated, it's not as pretty a rendering, but a bit of an updated view. And I wanted to talk about what we're exploring here. There's a couple of different things. I mentioned wanting to see variety, right? Because one of the things, frankly, in some affordable housing developments is it looks like cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, right? Every unit is the same. We really did not want that here. So what you can see here is a test of different kinds of siding So some board and batten siding, some clapboard, some shingle, using that variety deliberately. This is not showing different colors right now, that'll come later, but just seeing how the difference in direction and size of the siding starts to give some variation between the units, as well as the massing changes, as well as the way the windows were treated. And you can also see here some early ideas about, there being, say, a bright color at doors to distinguish units. So all of this is very much in play, but these are some early ideas. Let's go to the next. And this talks about a few things that I wanted to mention. It says RFP design guidelines, and there were very specific design guidelines. This talks about how we responded to those. I'm going to actually focus on a couple of key points that have to do both with creating variety and order in the housing. So how we place the windows. You'll see, for instance, that we're cornering a lot of windows. That makes for a really beautiful space inside, but it also adds interest to the building on the outside. Some people have asked me why we did the roofs we did, and that's the thing I want to most focus on with this diagram. And the diagram shows and notes shallow shed roofs. And the point of this is that every roof line here is either facing south or west. No roof line should be facing a different direction, because that's how we maximize the roof for photovoltaic panels. In addition, the long wall of every building, I should have said this, is within 15 degrees of south. For anybody who's put PVs on their own house, you will probably know that south-southwest facing roof line is what we need in order to make PVs work. So when I say sustainability has shaped this, I mean, it's literally shaped the buildings. We're still working on the exact angles of the roof lines, but we are really working to have the buildings express their sustainable strategies. Let's go on. And so here's the 3-story elevator building, and the front face of this is right behind the existing front face of the old COA building. And that allows us to keep, as I said, the vegetation that exists there and to fill it in. And on the right-hand side of the image here, you can see a parking lot that's tucked behind that building. So this building has 1-to-1 ratio for parking. It's 3 stories. You can see it has a sloped roof, and that the entry zone here to the left is actually 1 story to bring the scale down. And if we go to the next, oops, okay, that was backwards. But anyways, here's an example of a couple more 3-story buildings. So one of my favorites, of course, the Wellfleet Historical Society and Museum. Let's go to the next. And this gives an example in case anybody wants to see it of building height. So this building will be 41 foot 7 inches approximately. It isn't finished in design, but it gives you an idea of some existing buildings in town and their relative heights. Go ahead to the next. And this view, this is the other side. So now we're standing up on the slope inside from Long Pond Road. And you can see that we've also dropped the height of the building on this side of the building down to 2.5 stories, again, because it's facing Lawrence Road, and because at the first floor there is the community building, which spills out to this lovely patio and to landscaping beyond, so that there's space for all residents, no matter where they live, to spill out into the outdoors and really enjoy the beautiful environment around them. Let's go to the next. This is a view of the community building that I had pointed out. And so this houses, as I said, a laundry room, a gathering space that'll have a kitchenette, also a couple of office spaces, and may have some tenant storage in it as well. Very importantly, it's where people's mailboxes are, so they'll walk here to get their mail daily and hopefully interact with other residents. So this is where we've located the communal outdoor space as well. There'll be a patio, sitting area, a little tot lot for young children, and we hope some community gardens. Next. And I mentioned sustainability. I talk a lot about it, as some people know, but I wanted to go back to the point here and talk about passive solar orientation. So this is showing what I was talking about, that every building is facing south within 15 degrees. And you start to see here the way that's helped us deploy the photovoltaic panels, which are shown in the grids. Let's go to the next. So a few more things on sustainability. Jay mentioned that these buildings will be 100% electric. There will be no fossil fuel on site other than what drives in and out. And we have a number of strategies for both low energy demand, high performance building, but also climate resilience. So I just want to touch on a couple of them. First of all, everything, of course, will have WaterSense plumbing. Everything will have Energy Star appliances. These are very fundamental. Far more important is what we're going to be using for heating and cooling, and these units will have cooling. And these will be 21st century heat pumps. Jay reminded me a long time ago to say, not your grandparents' heat pump system. It's a very different kind of system, but I'm guessing that a number of people here probably actually already have these kind of heat pump systems in their own homes. So we'll be doing heat pump. We'll be doing energy recovery ventilation, which you might not all have in your own homes, but this means we have continuous ventilation because the building is that airtight. So this is a good moment to mention that we will go for passive house certification for these buildings, for all of them. And the energy recovery ventilation is a requirement for the passive house. We make that building so tight, you have to bring in fresh air mechanically, and you have to exhaust it. And this shows you a strategy. It's sort of the basics of the strategy for how we get to passive house. It starts first with the architecture. So I won't get into the details of EUI. It is energy use intensity, which is a global way of defining how much energy we're using, regardless of the source, the fuel source. But the basic strategy is we have to do the architecture right first, right? A really good envelope, the passive solar that I talked about, natural ventilation. Yes, the windows are operable, as well as mechanical ventilation. That will drive the energy use down. Then we have to have the right systems, which I talked about. That drives it down further. Then we're within reach of passive house, 20 EUI. And then we use renewable energy, the photovoltaic panels, to drive it toward net zero. And the two blue lines here that you see, the lower village, so that's the elevator building, has an EUI of 17.28, meaning it'll reach passive house, in this case, without even having the renewables. So I'm hopeful we can get very close to net zero energy over the course of a year in that building. The upper village actually needs the renewables to meet passive house, but we're still going to work on it to see if we can make it more efficient so that, again, we can get those as close to net zero energy as possible. That'll make them probably the most efficient housing in town, but if not the, pretty close. Keep going. So I'm going to pass it back to Jay. Jay, you're muted.
Got it. So Gail, thanks so much. I hope that our presentation has helped all of you here tonight deepen your understanding of our proposal, as well as our commitment to building high quality housing that is affordable, environmentally sustainable, resilient, and elegantly designed in a way that draws on local building traditions. And I also want to assure you that our proposal is actually the beginning of a conversation with Wellfleet's officials and citizens on how to build a new neighborhood that addresses a broad range of community needs. One of the benefits of the 40B process that will begin in just a couple weeks and the public hearings that are required is the opportunity they provide for us to work together to fine-tune our vision and perfect our proposal. Through this process, we can adapt and modify our plans so that we create a project that truly meets the town's bold and inspiring vision for a neighborhood that addresses the affordable housing crisis and leads to a more equitable and diverse year-round community. So thank you very much for your time tonight. And I will now turn it back to Brad to facilitate an opportunity for us to answer your questions and hear your comments. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for that great presentation. So like I said at the beginning, as a reminder, please raise your hands via the chat question for any questions you may have, and we will make sure to get to your questions. And we will make sure to unmute yourself when you do so. So Mallory, if you can help me keep an eye on the chat and the participants. Does anybody have any questions?
Brad, if I could let me pose a question that I'm hoping Julie can maybe lay out a little bit. So we're going to begin the public hearings before the Zoning Board of Appeals on July 14th. Correct me if I'm wrong about the date, Rebecca, but July 14th. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit, Julie, about that process and then the process for applying for state funding and when we might be able to break ground and welcome new residents into these homes.
Oh, that's a lot to talk about. A lot of wishful thinking, fingers crossed. No, the 40B process is very prescriptive. The town has to, assemble the ZBA and do their work relative to the addressing the town's needs, discussing the design, being very, very technical. It's actually a very technical process. We will be there at every meeting to every meeting will sort of have a theme, right? And we'll be there with our consultants in hand to address questions from the town. They're all public hearings, so anyone can attend. And we hope that we are able to really, get everyone a really strong understanding of our vision and our expectations and our goals for the project. Once the work is done, the ZBA has done their work, they'll start moving towards issuing a permit, a comprehensive permit. At the same time, we're going to be working to complete an application that we will submit into the funding round. There is typically one major funding round a year. You're required to submit a pre-application into the state, and from there they make a decision on what goes into the major round. So the pre-application is usually at the end of October, and the goal is to be chosen in the pre-app so we can put a full application in February. And the reason why these dates are important is because the state has a lot of people applying for state funding, and they really want to make sure that we have our 40B permit, our comprehensive permit, in hand. So our goal would be to try to have it in hand for the pre-app at the end of October, so that we can give our project the best opportunity to be selected to go into the major round. We understand that it may take longer. The town may, want us to have a few more meetings, but that's really our goal, is to come prepared, let folks know all they need to know and understand about the project so that it can move pretty efficiently to a permit issuance sometime in October.
Thank you, Julie. Looks like we have some questions in the chat. David is asking the question, will there be on-site property management?
Yes, I can answer that. POA has a property management group called POA Communities, and they are on site on all of our properties, including the ones on the Cape. We usually have an office. You know, we like to build, 2 or 3 sort of separate offices. As folks know, there are folks coming into our properties, and there's a lot of confidentiality relative to, their income or their needs, or, some folks come in and they're homeless. They don't even have, an address for us to share information with them. So we like to make sure that they're comfortable, that they feel they can share with us anything they feel is pertinent to their living on, in our communities. And we also have 24-hour maintenance. So any of our residents can call the 24-hour hotline, and we have a maintenance person on call to address any concerns that may arise, or, a clogged toilet, or, whatever the case may be.
Great, thank you, Julie. Another question in the chat from Jeffrey is, how will wastewater treatment plant be designed? Who will it serve? And will it be able to serve the neighborhood beyond 95 Lawrence?
Rebecca, I'm wondering if you might be able to give
I can
that
take a stab
to
at
start.
that.
Thanks.
So we actually just secured an engineer for the hydrological site assessment, the system design, and the Mass DET groundwater permitting, and also the final construction design plans and the specs. It's going to be, I don't know the technical parts of it, but it's going to be a wastewater treatment facility that will serve the 95 Lawrence Affordable Housing Project, the police department, the fire department, the elementary school, and there will be a phase 2 down the road that will hopefully serve the neighboring houses around the affordable housing project. I can probably get some more technical details on that through email if anybody wants to email me, but I don't want to go into the specifics of the facility itself.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Rebecca. Emily's asking the question, what degree of local resident preference will be sought / permitted? And will this be ongoing or limited to initial occupancy? And then additionally, what is considered local for this project? Let's take that one.
I can probably start.
Okay.
Just by referencing our work on our other 40B projects. So the town does have an opportunity to request a local preference, and we have local preferences on many of our 40B projects. So that's really something that's initiated by the town, as is, to some degree, what the town wants to define local as. Typically a local preference is someone who works in the town or has school children in the school system, or it has shown residency in the town. It can be much broader than that, but it really it's scrutinized sometimes. So the better defined your local preference is, the easier it is to make sure we're capturing what the town wants to see relative to the local preference. It is only for rental housing, only at an initial lease up, because as you can imagine, once it's met a local preference, everyone living there is local, right? So once you've leased up, you've sort of met the local preference. So it's not done ever again, unless, and I will tell you that there is an unless we have to close down the wait list and reopen a wait list. Then if we reopen a wait list, we can add back in the local preference as a priority. But typically we don't close down wait lists. You know, sometimes we're dealing with wait lists with folks who have been on a wait list, you know, 2 or 3 years to have an apartment. So we don't like to close them down because it's just not fair to folks who have literally been waiting 2 or 3 years to live in our communities. So I think I've answered the question.
Julie, can I, if I could just add a couple other things about this issue. You know, I think one of the things that I think we want to do, not only as the developers of this unit, but also as a Outer Cape resident, I would speak to say, we're trying to find a balance too. But certainly we all know people in our community who desperately need housing that's affordable to the people who live and work here year round. But we also need to do a little bit of growing. You know, the census in the elementary school is down to 100 or even fewer than 100 kids. We need to kind of reopen the pipeline that once existed where young families could move to our community, afford to live here, be employed by our local businesses and raise a family and increase the vibrancy of our year-round community. Right now, you know, really the only opportunity for people to move to our community is, you know, folks who are buying a second home or are going to retire here because they've got the incomes to be able to buy something in our community. And so, you know, certainly we want to work with the town and the state to make sure we can meet some needs, but I think it's also important that we open up some opportunity to welcome new people into our community to keep it alive and vibrant.
Thank you, Jay and Julie. Elaine is asking the question, what will the back of the townhouses look like in terms of opportunity to plan patios?
Me, I think. So thanks, Elaine. And actually, we plan patios. I didn't show an image of it because it's not fully developed yet, but we actually have a good sized patio. We're thinking like an 8x10 patio at the rear of every single unit of the townhouses, because we really do think it's so important, especially with affordable housing, which, you know, has to be kept to a certain size to make it constructible. So we're really looking for opportunities for people to be able to expand out into that landscape because it's a beautiful site. So, and we're also looking for some opportunities. There'll certainly be some landscaping to start with, but, you know, some areas that people can probably personalize and add to the landscape around their patios. So we're looking for that kind of individual opportunity for residents.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Next question is from Leslie and Dick, and they are wanting to know, will there be opportunities for employing local construction and tradespeople?
I can start with that. Hiring local is critical to our mission. You know, we recognize that, you know, for the community to buy into our work and to buy into the community we're trying to build, it always helps when you have local tradesmen and local contractors who can sort of reference that work and say, I worked on that. I'm a part of that. So we always strive to bring local tradespeople into our work. I think what makes some of the housing we've built on the Cape amenable to that is that we, you know, we, as Gail pointed out, we have a fairly simple forms and fairly simple shapes, and it allows, you know, folks who think of multifamily housing, oh, I would never work on multifamily housing, it's too complicated. Well, we've done it so it's simple. And so it's, you know, folks, you know, trades folks who are used to building this style housing as maybe a single family can come and join the team and, you know, work on this particular project. I think also having townhouses or clustered housing allows, you know, a smaller contractor or a smaller organization to participate, because they can take on, you know, buildings number 1 and 2, and then maybe another local sub can take on, you know, buildings 3 and 4. So it's always been our approach on the Cape, especially because you have amazing tradespeople, is try to connect our work to the local community. We will also work really very hard to have an MBE and WBE, Minority Business Enterprise and Women Business Enterprise. We have those goals as well. Those are important to our mission as well as CDP. So Gail, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think that's right. I mean, the 3-unit cluster, 4-unit cluster, they're the size of some houses in Wellfleet. So they'll seem very approachable, I think, to local tradespeople. I guess I do have one thing to add, which is that the kind of systems that we're putting in, which are less common, are actually a great opportunity for people, you know, in general, these systems are a great opportunity for people to kind of move into what really is going to be the lead in the 21st century in terms of mechanical systems. So there's a nice opportunity there for people to build those skills and then be able to use them elsewhere.
Right. And that was important when we hired Gail's firm, you know, to make certain that the details that they work on for their architecture is fine-tuned enough that, you know, a tradesperson can say, oh, this isn't so scary, right? Like, it's passive house, but it's approachable. So that's another way we work with the local subcontractors and trades folks.
Thank you, Julie. And Gail, Mo and Yvonne are wanting to know, does the laundry facility have to be in a separate building that requires going outdoors? Is there no way to put laundry in each building? And they're thinking of seniors going out in bad weather.
And I'm so glad you all asked this question, because I forgot to say something. So in terms of the seniors, the elevator building, that actually has the laundry in the basement. I forgot to mention that there is a basement in that building, a partial basement. And part of the reason is to put some of the utility spaces in that basement, as well as storage for tenants and a laundry room. And so I made a vague reference, but I didn't get specific. The idea of that building is to have everything, well, not everything they need, but, you know, so the basics of housing. So yes, the laundry room, just an elevator ride down, and also the property management offices that Julie was talking about. Again, they're on the first floor of that building. And the community room, you know, which maybe there's, you know, a blood pressure clinic once a month, or, you know, these are things that happen at a lot of the developments that we work on. So in that building, it is all under one roof, and people will not have to put a coat on in order to go do their laundry. The reason why we've got laundry in the community building for the Upper Village, there's 2 reasons. One is that because we're doing townhouses there, not flats, it's a lot of penetrations through the exterior wall or roof. And from a passive house, high energy efficiency point of view, that's a problem. Every one of those holes through a wall or a roof is a problem for us in terms of leaking air. And so if we can avoid having the dryers with the dryer vents in every single unit, it actually helps us in terms of the energy performance. That's sort of part 1. Part 2 is kind of a social goal, which is if people, now we're talking the families, have to go to get their mail in the community building, why not also go do their laundry in the community building? Because really part of what we're trying to do here is to build a community among the residents, right? So there's mutual support. So there's both a social aspect of this as well as an energy efficiency aspect.
Great, thanks, Gail. The next question that is in the chat is, Robert, we live near the ball field and we have concerns about losing our well to pollution from the project. Anybody want to comment on that?
So let me try to give it a start, and perhaps Rebecca can add a little bit more, and we can get you more detailed information. But so one of the really important parts of this project and our partnership with the town is the building of a wastewater treatment facility that is going to ensure that this development and the 46 units of housing here are not affecting the water quality of the neighborhood. And so what is envisioned is a wastewater treatment facility that is going to tie together the elementary school, the fire department, the police department, and these 46 homes, and to treat that water to a quality, to a level of quality that will be far greater than a typical Title V system that all of the neighboring houses all around this development have. And so we will be removing a much greater percentage of the nitrogen and phosphorus. And so the effluent that is going to leach into the ground will be much cleaner than any single family home in the neighborhood with a Title V system.
I think you nailed that, Jay.
Thank you, Jay and Rebecca. Lori notes, thank you for hosting this meeting. I have a concern about the location of the maintenance building as it is very close to my house, which means that noise and smell will be an issue. Is there some flexibility as to its location?
I'm going to answer that. Lori, thanks. And yes, there is flexibility about it. And the first thing we're looking at is, because I know that because you and I talked about it, that the trash was your biggest concern. And we are already looking at alternatives for where to put the trash. So I should mention, because this was a question in the abutter walkthrough that we did. So there will be 1 or 2 locations on this site where the residents bring their trash to it. It'll be in an enclosure, in dumpsters inside a fenced enclosure, and they'll bring it to it, and then there'll be a pickup system, right? So a service that comes and picks it up for both trash and recycling. So Lori had raised in the walkthrough that we had done a couple of weeks ago, the question about the trash in particular, and I said that we would take a look at it, and we have actually already started doing that. I don't have anything to show for it yet because we're still trying to figure that out. We need to run some ideas by POA and CDP. The maintenance, I guess I'd like to know from you, Lori, if I can do this, Brad, if the maintenance building itself is an issue. That is a little harder to move, though we can look at opportunities, but it's a little harder.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lori. I don't, since it's a very personal concern, I don't know if we should maybe take that discussion offline.
We can
just
definitely
so as to be respectful of people's time. Are you able to put your email in the chat?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Gail.
And Lori, feel free to reach out to Mallory on our staff who has been in touch with you, and she can connect you with any member of our development team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like Emily is wanting to know, is it still anticipated that you will request tax relief from the town?
I can try to give a stab at this. So this property will pay some form of taxes to the town of Wellfleet. That would be consistent with the way that other affordable units in the town. So it's one of the details still to be worked out with the town, but it will. The property will be contributing to the tax base based on the value of the development, and part of the valuation of the development is the income that comes in from the affordable rentals. So keep in mind that that rent income is fixed and locked in so that it's affordable. So clearly, a home that can be rented out on a weekly basis for $4,000 or $5,000 a week, and is 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, is going to have a much higher value and therefore pay kind of per square foot a higher rate of property taxes. But we will be paying property taxes with this development.
Thanks, Jay. We have a couple other questions in the chat. I just want to note, I know a lot of folks have a number of things to do. We'll get to as many of these here as possible. And if for some reason we can't get to the questions, we will make sure to put the email addresses in the chat for folks to reach out to. Some of the remaining questions that I see here in the chat are, will there be any subsidized one-bedroom units for seniors or disabled individuals on fixed low incomes?
Yes.
So we first and foremost, of course, will gladly accept if those folks have a mobile voucher so they can sort of select where they want to live. Our doors are wide open. We appreciate the fact that some folks do need rental assistance. We will be applying to the state for other forms of rental assistance. And the state does like to see a variety of bedroom sizes. In many of our properties, we try to have as equal number of 1, 2s, and 3s that are rent subsidized. So I will say it's a little more difficult to get a 1-bedroom unit subsidized than it is 2 and 3. The state is focused on family production units and serving the needs of the families in the community. But we are, POA and CDP look forward to folks that have a mobile voucher, coming to the property.
Thank you. One question here from Martha is, will there be a storage area for oyster men or women to store their gear?
So let me try to give a stab at this. So I think one of the things we want to try to balance is kind of the community and being in a compact footprint, and also having a number of units that are close together, being above a quality of life that everybody can enjoy. And so, clearly an oyster business, the CDP is very much involved in working with shellfishing businesses across Wellfleet, of running a loan fund to help of those businesses. And so we know a lot about those businesses. And so trying to run a shellfishing business out of an apartment really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just not enough room for a shell fisherman, and it also will have an impact on the neighbors. And so I think what the solution there is for us to do is to start looking as a community for other alternatives where for shellfishing businesses to set up shop in an appropriate place, hopefully closer to the water, where they can store their gear and their equipment, where they can winter over their oysters. And I think that's probably the best solution here, is trying to create cooperative or communal spaces for these businesses to operate.
Thank you, Jay. Looks like we've got 2 more questions here. One of them being, will the wage scale for construction work meet Massachusetts prevailing wage law regulations? Does anybody know that?
I can answer it, not precisely, but what I can tell you is some of the funding sources that we use do require a prevailing wage. So when it is required, we obviously meet that requirement. We are very careful in who we select for our general contractors and make it, very much a part of our work, that they are being fair and equitable with the folks they hire and with the subs that they do work with. So I can say, I can answer it without answering it, that we do, we do have some funding sources that require prevailing wage. Mass housing for one. And when a prevailing wage is required, we absolutely make sure that it is documented and all the certifications are sent into the state or to the funding agency that requires it.
Thanks, Julie. Looks like our last question here is how can members, and this is probably a good way to end the conversation for tonight, and then how can members of the public access the Zoning Board of Appeals meetings starting in July?
I'm going to take that one.
Thanks, Rebecca.
So we're going to have them be hybrid meetings. They're going to be at the Adult Community Center. They're going to be televised, and you're going to be able to join via Zoom, or you can come in person. All of the meetings are going to be set up like that as of right now. I will note that if the governor does decide to extend the orders of having Zoom meetings, we may switch them back to all Zoom. We do get a lot of participation via Zoom, but for right now, they will be held hybrid, and we will be posting that schedule within the next day or so. That answer that question?
It does, and thank you. And yeah, we can take a few more questions if folks have some. I see another one came into the chat as well. It looks like, what about pets? I saw up there. Oh, will residents be able to have pets on the property?
I can answer that. In most of our properties on the Cape, obviously a service animal is more than acceptable. We have allowed pets of certain sizes onto our properties, especially in the Cape, where being a pet owner is part of your daily life. So it is something that we work through and discuss with our property management team. I think it's pets of certain, we do have to make sure that the size pet and certain breeds are not on the site, just because of
we can't get it. We can't buy insurance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's one other kind of point that I make is that we really haven't really talked about how much is this going to cost, and both to build and what is it going to cost the town. And so I want to preface my remarks with saying, we're about to go into public hearings and get input from the town, and are still tweaking things. And so, we don't have a project yet to put out to bid. But I think that there are some kind of rough ballpark estimates that it's going to cost in excess of about $20 million to build these 46 homes. And one of the really key things about this project and being able to do a project of this scale is that the state is going to want to see that the town of Wellfleet supports this project, and we will be making a request for community preservation funds and for housing trust funds to help finance this project, and also to demonstrate to the state that there is support in the town for this project. And we're still figuring out that number. It's probably somewhere hovering on north or south of $1 million. But I think the really key thing is that is then going to leverage a more than $19 million investment by the state and federal government to make this project possible. And it wouldn't be, and unless you're doing a project kind of this size, it wouldn't be possible to leverage those kinds of resources. If we were to go and build a couple units here and a couple units there, we'd never be able to get the state and federal government to make the kind of investment and make this happen in the way that will. And so, really from what on the order is going to be about $40,000 a unit for the town, that's what it's going to cost the town. So we're going to, be able to build $400,000 a unit housing for somewhere in the order of about $40,000 a unit from the taxpayers of the town of Wellfleet. And actually, since we're also getting quite a bit of short-term rental tax money, much of that burden is actually not even going to fall on the residents of the town of Wellfleet. It'll be the visitors who are doing weekly renters who are creating some of our affordable housing challenges. They're going to be pitching in and helping to ensure that we have a vibrant and healthy year-round community that can afford to live, work, and thrive in Wellfleet.
Thank you. That's such a great point, Jay. Are there any last questions anybody wanted to ask that we didn't get to? Okay, I don't think I see any more in the chat.
So I would just remind folks that there is an informational website on the project and the town of Wellfleet's website. The Community Development Partnership has also prepared a comprehensive frequently asked questions document, which provides a lot of detailed information about that project. And we are happy to make that available. And of course, there will be opportunities to provide input during the zoning board hearings. And we really are excited to be working with the town and its residents to build this exciting project and ensure that it's a project that's truly going to meet the needs of our community. So thank you so much for your interest and for attending and all the great questions tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, well, and that concludes tonight's Q&A session. And like I said, if anybody has any additional questions, definitely feel free to reach out to any of your folks that were on the Zoom tonight. And Mallory in particular will be able to help coordinate any questions. Mallory, feel free to put your name in the chat, and we look forward to working with all of you moving forward. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.